Yesterday was one small step for humankind and one giant step for Palestine.
Two boats carrying pro-Palestinian activists reached the Gaza Strip in defiance of the Israeli blockade. Is it just a symbolic break of the siege, a media stunt, or the beginning of a process to bring Gaza back from the brink? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome, I'm Jane Dutton. Despite Israel's strict 14-month siege of the Palestinian Gaza Strip, two vessels carrying 46 international human rights activists have reached the Strip. The boats carried activists from 17 countries in a move to highlight the plight of Palestinians in Gaza. Israel allowed the boats to dock there and, in an attempt to avoid media provocation, says it's just a one-off event. The Gaza blockade goes back to 2006. In November of that year, Arab foreign ministers met in Cairo and decided to end the financial embargo on the Strip, but banks have been reluctant to do the same, and no funds have been transferred to Gaza for fears of US sanctions. To this day, Israel continues to assert control of the borders of the Strip. In the past, attempts to break the siege failed. Not too long ago, in January 2008, angry Palestinians stormed the Rafah border crossing, which is the only crossing between the Gaza Strip and Egypt, demanding the frontier be opened to ease the blockade imposed by Israel. The move came after Gaza City plunged into darkness when its only power plant had shut down due to the Israeli fuel blockade. Egyptian authorities opened the crossings for a few days, allowing Palestinians to buy supplies and return. And joining us now are our guests in Gaza, Huwaida Araf. She was on the boat and is co-founder of the International Solidarity Movement in Tel Aviv. Dr. Raanan Gisson, he was a senior advisor to the former Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. Thank you both for joining us. Ms. Araf, looking at what's been tried in the past, some rather dramatic efforts, is this just another attempt that's also likely to end in failure?
Well, we hope not, and I think it's been a huge success so far, if only to raise the morale of the people, to send a message to the people of Gaza that they are not alone, because they see that they are living under a very brutal, illegal and frankly immoral siege imposed by the Israeli government, and they don't see governments or international institutions reacting to pressure Israel to end its siege. And so to see the civilian community mobilizing in this way, I hope brought some hope that they are not alone. And I also hope that we sent a message to the international community that we don't have to stand by silently and watch such injustices carry on. We can do something. So far I do think it's been a success, and hopefully we've opened the doors of imagination, and there will be more people following and doing similar actions.
Dr. Gisson, is this likely to make Israel think and change its tactic in any way?
No, look, you know, there's been a problem with human rights organizations throughout the world in the past few years, particularly with the rise of fundamental terrorism. They're looking for the penny under the lamppost. I mean, they're looking for human rights violation at a country that is open, that is transparent, that has the rule of law. And they're ignoring, I would say not just ignoring, they think they're living, the Palestinian people are living on a lone star. They're living in Gaza under the reign of terror and siege of Hamas, an organization which is sponsored by Iran. They completely ignore it. I do hope that this delegation that arrived at the shores of Gaza, they didn't break any siege, we allowed them to come in because they presented no threat, will carry a thorough investigation into the flagrant human rights violation of Hamas in the past 2 years, and particularly in the past 2 weeks with the Khilis family, where they prevented people against the Geneva Convention from receiving medical assistance after they brutally tried to murder them. And these guys came to Israel to receive medical help. So, I mean, what is this story about human rights violation and Israel brutal siege? Israel left Gaza in 2005. We gave it to the Palestinians. Do make your best, the best you can out of it. Try to build a state of your own. What happened?
Maybe you could respond that to Ms. Araf. I mean, what is Israel doing wrong in Gaza? According to Dr. Gisson, there's no problem as far as Israel is concerned in their treatment of Gazans.
Yes, because they seem to whitewash all of their human rights abuses and completely ignore all the reports of international human rights organizations. They think it's rubbish when it comes to Israel's violations, but they hold them up high when they are regarding other people's violations. All violations of human rights and international humanitarian law is wrong. Now, yes, Israel in 2005 did pull its illegal settlements and its military presence out of Gaza, which was illegal in the first place. But they are still recognized as an occupying power by the International Committee of the Red Cross and by all international human rights and humanitarian organizations, including Israeli organizations, and therefore they have an obligation for the welfare of the Palestinian people, which they have abused by restricting the entry of humanitarian aid, by putting the people under siege. We have visited the Al-Shifa hospital in Gaza City this morning and seeing that basic medicines that can improve the life of Palestinian patients, and in some cases even save the lives of Palestinian patients, the ability for sick people to travel abroad to receive the aid that they need. This is all being denied. This is illegal, a violation of Israel's obligation under the Fourth Geneva Conventions, and Mr. Gessen cannot get around that.
I mean, Dr. Gessen, the UN has called it collective punishment. Your settlements are illegal settlements in the West Bank, the building of the wall.
No,
but I mean,
not illegal. Look,
it is illegal under international law.
The problem is not the illegal settlement. The problem is that we supply Gaza with 160 carloads, truckloads of supplies, medicine.
You do not supply them with enough. That is the problem. That is why people are starving there. Okay, let's talk about this boat.
No, people are starving because of Hamas policy, not because of Israel. And people are not starving.
Mr.
We
Gessen,
supply food, we supply electricity, we supply water.
You supply food and electricity, a bare minimum, not enough for the people to live on, and because you completely occupy and control Gaza by air, sea, and land, and don't let the people get on with their lives and build their own economy.
Okay, let's talk about this boat trip that was allowed. Let me just jump in here and talk about the boat that was allowed to dock, and I can bring in from Nicosia, Karakias Trianthalides. He's the president of the European Parliament's delegation for relations with Palestine. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us what role Cyprus had in allowing this boat to go over to Gaza.
It had no role at all other than keeping within the law, the international law, of allowing anybody who is on a peaceful mission to go through Cyprus to where they wanted to go.
And also Cyprus did check the boat on behalf of Israel. Did they find anything out of order?
As far as I know, they found nothing out of order, but I am not, of course, the Cypriot authorities. But if there was something wrong, it would have come out in the media.
Okay, Dr. Gessen, let's talk a little bit more about that. If you have allowed Cyprus to search these boats, because ultimately, I mean, Israel is in control of Gaza here. You did allow those boats to dock. If you allowed them to look through these boats, give it the security thumbs up, is this something that could be allowed to happen more often now, if they are just bringing in humanitarian aid so desperately needed in Gaza?
Let me surprise you. There is no restrictions on getting human rights organizations, those with good intention, those who come clean in heart and mind to support. They don't need to come through the sea. They can come through our passages. But of course, if there are human rights organizations which serve as frontline organization for Hamas or for other terrorist organizations, we have the right to check them and to stop them. Those who come clear without any intention to cause any harm to us or to the Palestinians and are not carrying weapons are free to come through.
But you were very concerned about this boat. I mean, it had an 84-year-old nun on it.
I have no problem with allowing people who want to help the Palestinians come into that territory. Unfortunately, it is Hamas that is preventing that from happening. Hamas is keeping 1.8 million people under siege as hostages, and not Hamas alone, Iran and Syria. Where is the Palestinian National Liberation Movement? It's held as hostage like our soldier.
Ms. Araf, I mean,
the Palestinian people chose their own representatives. If they think that they're under siege by their own government, then they will do something about it. But this does not. Mr. Gessen cannot use this to get around Israel's obligations and blatantly lie. I'm sorry, Mr. Gessen, that you do not obstruct humanitarian aid. And I will refer you to UN report after UN report about the trouble that they are having getting humanitarian aid into Gaza. Now, our mission, we'd like to stress, was not strictly a humanitarian aid one, because the Palestinian people deserve to live on more than just humanitarian humanitarian aid. Right now, 80% of the people of Gaza cannot live without humanitarian assistance. That is not life with dignity. Our mission was to assert that the Palestinian people have human rights. They have a right to travel freely. They have a right to control their own economy, to build an economy, to establish relations with the outside community. Right now, they're not. They're in a big open-air prison. So our mission was not to deliver humanitarian aid, though we did carry some symbolic pieces of equipment that they requested, like hearing aids, which children of Gaza don't have, and they're going, like, they're going, humanitarian aid, hearing aids that don't get in, medical supplies that don't get in. We carried what we can, but we also had small boats, and ours wasn't a humanitarian mission. It was to show the world that Israel is putting the Palestinian people in a big prison, and they cannot even exercise basic human rights, like the right to leave their country and come back, the right to receive medical assistance, the right to pursue their education. This is what our mission was about.
Okay, Dr. Gisson, if this was, as Mr. Ruff says, a success and there haven't been any problems that have come to our ears, would you now then be open for ships coming from Saudi Arabia, from Jordan, for example, to do the same? If they go through Cyprus, which you clearly trust to search the ships effectively for you?
It's not the sea lane or the venues. It's the question, what do they bring into Gaza? And of course, after we ascertain and verify that there is no weapons and no terrorists coming in or out of Gaza, they're free to go. We do not have a quarrel with the Palestinian people. We're the only country today that supplies them with humanitarian aid. We are not bombing the passages. It's Hamas that is doing it. It's Hamas that is preventing people from going out of Gaza and seeking work. It's Hamas that is preventing normal life from the Palestinian people for the past 2 years.
This is not.
And so I'm
this
all
is not
for,
what
for,
your
I'm
own
all for
Israeli
the
human rights organizations contradict what you're saying right now.
I'm all for your
Israeli
human rights effort,
organizations contradict what you're saying.
But it's pathetic and futile if you don't look at the whole picture. If you take things out of context. Okay, let's bring in
Mr. Triantafilides. I mean, let's look at the whole picture here. Where do we stand on this?
Yes.
Where do we stand on this? I mean, both of these two are, giving each other body blows, one denying human rights abuses. I mean, where do we stand on this and the impact that this boat is likely to have on Gaza, certainly in the short term?
Okay, as far as we are concerned, that is the delegation for relations between the European Union and the Palestinian Legislative Council. This trip has been a great success in the sense that it is the first one to break the siege. And if, from what I hear now from the debate that is going on, if this is allowed to be repeated, then it will be a big success. It's not just a symbolic action. But all this remains to be seen in the future, where the Israeli authorities will allow other similar missions to arrive in Gaza.
Okay, let's take a short break on that note. But when we come back, we do take a closer look at the dire situation in Gaza. We talk a little bit more about that and ask who's responsible for the tragedy. Stay with us.